Let's check in with noted scientific expert and Chardonnay connoisseur, Chardonnay socialist.
That's it, Nancy Pelosi. So they have contempt for science.
Play 17.
Climate crisis, which is causing these, has an impact, has influenced what is happening in California and the whole West, as well as the storms that are battering the Gulf Coast. This is a reality. So, and when it comes to the coronavirus, they have contempt for science. That's why we have almost 200,000 people who will lose their lives by the end of this week. 200,000 people. And that's why that there is contempt for science as to what the climate crisis is.
She goes from climate crisis to basically fake crying about the 200,000 people who have died, who will have died from COVID this week, as though she's an actress reading for a part. We're not supposed to pay attention to that, of course. We're to believe that Nancy Pelosi
cares so much about the poor people. Yeah, who else is going to scrub my toilets and do all my chores and laundry and cooking?
You know, that's what Nancy thinks about poor people. She likes poor people to be around so that she can order them to do things for her that she doesn't want to have to do herself because she's a millionaire who lives in a mansion in San Francisco. So there's that. But, oh, yeah, no, she cares a lot. It's big tears. Nancy's got big tears. Sure she does. What a fraud. What an absolute fraud. And this phrase, contempt for science. What does that mean? I mean, when they say that, it makes me think, oh, wow, is this a person who, are they like a true Luddite? You know, they don't want to use cell phones because they think that it's going to give you brain cancer or something. You know, Luddite going back to the beginnings of, what was it, the Industrial Revolution in England. Ned Ludd, apocryphal character who they would say would commit sabotage in the factories when they were using machinery to replace, I believe it was weavers, loom workers. And yeah, Luddites, right? That's where we get the term. People that won't use technology, although it was really more political than it was about actually being scared or unwilling to use technology. They didn't want their jobs to be replaced. What is it exactly that Republicans have contempt for when it comes to science? We are lectured about this from people who, and this is mainstream Democrat thinking now, they will tell you openly that men can get pregnant, that a fetus is not a baby, that a man can become a woman, that there are multiple genders, not just two. And I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there's a whole slew of, there's a lot of stuff here. Leave out. But yeah, that's the political party that wants to lecture people on science. And the scientific illiteracy of so many of their beliefs and ideas is apparent to the point where it's almost beyond parody. I mean, you can't even really mock these things. You know, they will say stuff. Oh, they think that men don't have a biological advantage in sports or in fighting over women. This is mainstream Democrat stuff. This is what, if you are a Democrat, you are to believe these things. It's not up for debate, not up for discussion. And they want to lecture us about science. You know, anytime you start to get a lib who wants to tell you about how sciencey they are, just ask them to define what a woman is. And see how they start to stammer, well, the X chromosome with the... ideas and feelings, and it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Isn't it just female a gender, a biological reality? But no, they can't even say that because their belief system has gone well beyond it. It's funny, the same way that libs say that we have contempt for science. I always want to say they have contempt for history and for logic. They put emotion over reason all the time. And Nancy Pelosi is a perfect example of that. And it's just pathetic to watch her try to get some tears going for political advantage. Nancy Pelosi doesn't give a crap about people that aren't useful to Nancy Pelosi, just as a rule. She's the classic limousine liberal, the Chardonnay socialist, the person who elevates herself, doesn't have to actually deal with the bad policies that she enforces on everyone else, and then goes around thinking she's doing some great service for America, or at least pretends to. And the fact that she is at the top of the Democrat Party really tells you everything you need to know. But my favorite thing that happened yesterday may have been this. CNBC's Jim Cramer. I was out there like, yeah, like invest in this, honk, honk, like, all the noises and buy this stock and buy that stock and all the stuff that he does. I'll never forget when Cramer went on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart just got to sit there and sanctimoniously lambaste him. I never forget that. And I was like, Jim, why are you doing this? For the financial crisis? Is this some guy who's on a show like, yeah, buy this stock, sell this one? Blah. Like, there's a huge, trillions of dollars moving around in these financial markets, mega institutions, and Jim Cramer's the fall guy? That was just unfair, man. That was unfair. That's why you can never trust, you can never have a political conversation with lib comedians, because they their whole bit is to humiliate you and avoid accountability for their ideas. Clown nose on, clown nose off. Honk, honk, I'm a comedian. Oh, look at you. Your name is silly. Did you just say that there are no victims of communism from the 20th century? Like, oh, I'm just a comedian, man. That's what they love to do. Jon Stewart did it. Many, many, many left-wing comedians. They want to play in the big boy intellectual game when they want to, and the moment they get cornered, they go, oh, I'm just here making crank yanker jokes and, whatever. He did it to, Jon Stewart did the same thing to Tucker Carlson a long time ago on CNN. The clip is still there. It just completely played the clown nose on, clown nose off game and ambushed him. Anyway, this was fun. Speaking of clown nose on, clown nose off, Jim Cramer, he let this one slip yesterday. Play clip 2.
I mean, what deal can we have, Crazy Nancy? I'm sorry, that was the president. I have such reverence for the office, I would never use that term. But it is hard,
you just
isn't
did.
it? Oh, come on.
But you just did.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean. The reverence I have for the office is so great.
He called her Crazy Nancy to her face. Yes, Cramer, yes. And the president retweeted this. He's like, don't back down from this. Don't step away from this. You got to go for it, man. She is Crazy Nancy. Crazy Nancy. Crazy Nancy. So, yeah, there you have it. Oh, that was great. That really made my day. It really did. Just having Nancy Pelosi get called crazy to her face. She's, even some Democrats have come out to say that her tactics during this COVID lockdown, this tactic that she's taken of hold the country hostage and then try to use that in order to get more concessions from Republicans to get wish list items from the Congress done, right? To get from the libs in the Congress, that Pelosi doesn't care about people that are suffering right now. That much is very obvious. Doesn't feel any urgency. All the businesses that are going under, all the people who are losing their livelihoods. And then remember, you lose your business, you can't pay your bills, then you lose your home, right? There's a cascading effect here when all that income and all that work product is taken from you by the government. These are not businesses that have failed because of the market. These are businesses that have failed because of lockdown libs. They have taken people's livelihoods from them by force of law, by force of police. We're going to come shut you down. Don't let people work out in your gym. Don't let healthy people go do something that's good for them during a pandemic. No, don't let that happen. Unbelievable. But you get, Crazy Nancy lecturing people about how she cares about the poor. Oh, and about science too. And about how they have contempt for science. How do they have contempt for science? What is it exactly that Republicans say that is contemptuous of science? We now play their game too, even on climate change. They'll say, do you believe in climate change? No, climate change is real. It's just not something we can control and doesn't really make much of a difference. Oh my gosh, but no, sure, climate change is real. It's always been real. It's been real for as long as the earth has been around. So why would it not be real now? Of course it's real. Oh, but you mean it's kind of like BLM. They create a phrase that you must agree with, and then you sign on for the entire political agenda. Almost like this is a propaganda tactic that they've honed over time, as dishonest and disgusting as it is. This is what they like to do. And here's the Mayor Garcetti, mayor of L.A., as if, L.A. plastic bag ordinances are going to somehow stop the earth from warming. Morons. Play 5.
The idea of saying, I don't think science knows, is like turning back 2,000 years of human progress. It's like saying the truth doesn't actually know. We know what is causing this. There is consensus there, and he's kind of one of the last members of the Flat Earth Society. But, denial doesn't work when it comes to COVID. Denial doesn't work when it comes to climate. And the cost of denial is that people lose their lives and their livelihood.
What is Trump denying about COVID exactly? I'm always amazed by this. It's kind of like when they say Trump's a racist and I say why, and then the only thing they can bring up is a talking point that's a lie about Charlottesville that they just keep saying, even though it's demonstrably false. What is it exactly? What is it exactly that they point to here? It's not clear. It's not clear at all. It's just that's what you're supposed to hear. Like I had an old friend reach out last night. Lives in California. He's a lib. And he said, "Look, man, I don't like to bring up politics with you. And I can be friends with liberals. Just don't step into the Thunderdome with the Buckster, because you're not going to like what ends up happening, right? You can be my friend and be a lib, but don't start thinking, have you ever thought of? Yes, I have thought of. Have you ever heard the argument from the left, Buck? Yes, I've heard that argument. This is what I do all day, all the time." But he goes, I don't think that climate change denial is going to look so smart when Manhattan's underwater. And I can't even respond because you're so brainwashed. Do you think Manhattan's going to be underwater in our lifetime? In 500 years, who knows what the world's going to look like, but I'm not going to change how much water I use in the shower because of what might happen in a century or two. New from #1 New York Times bestselling author Vince Flynn comes Total Power, a Mitch Rapp novel by Kyle Mills. In this next thriller in the best-selling Mitch Rapp series, it's a race against the clock when ISIS takes out the entire U.S. power grid and throws the country into chaos. Imagine, what would we do if this eventuality actually came to pass? You'll be taken through that situation in this incredible, pulse-pounding novel. The story keeps you on the edge of your seat while taking you through a destructive cyber attack on our nation. It makes you ask yourself, will it be lights out for America, or can our top assassin save this country from plunging into darkness? The Real Book Spy calls Total Power a serious contender for Best Book of the Year. If you're a fan of suspense and thrillers, this is the book for you. Take back the power, Total Power. The new Mitch Rapp thriller from Vince Flynn, available September 15th in hardcover, ebook, and audio. Order it now. Why did Trump agree to do a town hall with Stephanopoulos? First of all, the Stephanopoulos thing, I'm fascinated by this guy because I don't understand it at all. He's just another tiny, smug lib journo. Guy was a Democrat operative, just like Jake Tapper. Oh, Jake Tapper, who intervenes in congressional races now to try to convince people not to run. Did that to our friend Sean Parnell, if you read the reports on it. It's a weird move, isn't it? But these Democrat operatives pose as journalists, so they're frauds. And then they say, well, when I say they can be journalists, but they're opinion journalists, right? They are people that are pushing an agenda. And that they pretend not to is absurd. It's laughable. But Stephanopoulos sits there, and last night, it reminded me of a CNN segment where the neutral anchor is there just to make sure that the hand-picked Democrat, attack guests can go after the Republican and have somebody that say, yeah, make sure that all the blows land as hard as they possibly can. And that's what I saw happening. That's the circumstance as it was unveiled in front of me. I don't know why Trump did it. I don't understand. We don't really have that many of them here, but it just was a lot of questions that were basically like, sir, why do you do this terrible thing? And, you're kind of a racist. And then he sits there and he tries to be nice and respectful to the person. There's one woman who was asking about pre-existing conditions and basically told the president, she didn't say shut up, but was kind of like, excuse me, sir, you be quiet. I'm like, lady, you're talking to the president of the United States, okay? Like, show just a tiny bit of respect. Can you imagine if at a town hall somebody had silenced just some random person picked by the producers to attack Obama with some loaded question, but some random person was talking over the president saying, excuse me, sir, be quiet, let me finish my question? I don't think that ever would have happened, would it? But Trump he was being asked, a pastor from Philadelphia said, what are we supposed to think in the ghetto? His phrase, quote, in the ghettos of America, when you say make America great, and that's like offensive, the make America great again. What are we supposed to say? Well, the country's supposed to say make America bend the knee and beg forgiveness forever again. I mean, what are we really supposed to do? People that are alive now that had no part of the wrongs of the past shouldn't be made to feel guilty about what they themselves did not do, and certainly shouldn't be made to pay for actions that they did not engage in, for deeds that they are not responsible for. But Democrats seem to not think this. Oh no, let's keep turning the clock back and find a way to create a narrative that will empower us in the present at the expense of our political opponents. Look, the president was asked about the healthcare thing. I'm just going to, this is all during this town hall with Stephanopoulos. I don't know why he does this. Doesn't help. It's not worth it. I know people are saying, I watched it. I did not think it came off. It's not that it came off badly for the president, that I didn't like his answers or anything else, but he's just subjecting himself to hand-picked ABC News hostility. It's an ambush. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Stephanopoulos is there to tell them to, punch this guy in the face and then, hand him a bag of ice and say, you might want to put this on that there, Mr. President. Sorry. Orchestrating the whole thing. Here's what Trump said about the health care issue, because this is, for Republicans right now, this is a weakness. What's the messaging on health care? Why are we talking more about immigration, as I mentioned last hour, and where are we on the health care issue?
We are not going to hurt anything having to do with pre-existing conditions. We're not going to hurt pre-existing conditions. And in fact, just the opposite. If you look at what they want to do, where they have socialized medicine, they will get rid of pre-existing conditions. If they go into Medicare for All, which is socialized medicine, and you can forget about your doctors and your plans, just like you could forget under President Obama. He said you can have your doctor, you can have your plan, and that turned out to be a lie. And he said it 28 different times, at least. We have 28 different times. You can have your doctor, you can have your plan. Well, it's not true. But what we're doing is we're going to be doing a health care plan, pre-existing, protecting people with pre-existing conditions. As an example, yourself, it sounds like that's exactly perfect. That's exactly what we're talking about. We're going to be doing a health care plan very strongly and protect people with pre-existing conditions.
What is that health care plan? How is it possible that we had, let's have some tough talk, Republicans. I love all the best things about this Trump administration and the GOP and Mitch McConnell, the mean, lean judge confirmation machine. There have been some great things that have happened. The Mideast peace deal. I talk about the good stuff. I share the things I need to about this. But we need to have a better health care plan. That's for sure. Let's take a little stroll down memory lane now that we know what the actual results of the Trump administration's foreign policy thus far have been, as the president has the prime minister of Israel talking about what a great peace deal has been. Peace deals are being negotiated or being signed, I should say, right now with Bahrain and the UAE. What was the lib claim going to be, or what was the lib claim that Trump was going to do to the Middle East? Back at the start of the presidency, we got a nice little montage for you. Play one.
President Trump's big decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and one that Palestinians and others say could destroy hopes of Middle East peace once and for all.
The president's unilateral action will get people killed. How hot will it get? And how destabilizing will it be?
What he has done is thrown a diplomatic bomb into the Middle East peace process.
They're not interested in history.
They don't know history.
That would then embarrass all the Sunni Arab regimes. They would have to do something, enormously complicating, by the way, Israel's relations with them.
It's going to stop any hope of Middle East progress in the peace talks.
You might be saying, Bug, what was that all about? What country did Trump invade and massacre all the inhabitants in the Middle East? That was about moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Okay. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, the world's going to fall apart. The Middle East is going to be soaked in blood forever. And I always think it's so funny. People who don't really know anything about history or politics in the Middle East will say, oh, it's going to be destabilizing. It's like, first of all, it's pretty destabilized. We're talking about mini stability. It's always something that you're measuring in pretty short increments. And second of all, you think moving an embassy is really going to be a big deal there? Meaning that it's going to lead to violence and, please. Steve Schmidt, the dumbest analyst on TV over at MSNBC, he tweeted out, where was this? Back in 2018. This is making the rounds today. Trump destabilized the Middle East with his decision to move the embassy. His abject ignorance of the history and religions that have shaped this moment have given succor to the agents of terror and chaos. Trump destabilizes. Hamas terrorists provoke. Israel responds. Repeat. Really, the dumbest analyst on television. Dumber than Ana Navarro, which is amazing. I mean, I almost am impressed by how stupid Steve Schmidt is when he talks about these things. It's not. I don't know the guy. I never met him. It's not personal. I just think he's the worst. I think he's the dumbest analyst on television. Political analyst. Might be dumber sports analyst or something. I don't know. But yeah, that was what they were saying about the move of the embassy. It was going to wreck everything. Why? Now, if you were buying a car from somebody, I want to put this in a context. If you were buying a car from somebody and they were as wrong about that car as you were, as they were rather about this moving of the embassy. Right? Meaning that they were saying, oh my gosh, that car, the wheels are going to fall off if you buy that car, and it's going to explode if you have the smallest fender bender. The next time after you drive that car, let's say 100,000 miles, it's perfect, purrs like a kitten, no problems. The next time you go to buy a car, would you listen to those morons? Why is it that our news media analysts, particularly about foreign policy, and the so-called foreign policy intelligentsia that exists in D.C. and New York primarily, they can just be so stunningly, shockingly wrong. And it's like, oh yeah, that's just Tuesday. No biggie. No big problem. These people are morons. I sit here and, you can go back in time. You're never going to create a montage of what I say on this show about foreign policy that sounds anything like that in terms of, wow, this person doesn't know what the heck they're talking about. But you see, why do they do it? Why would they say all those things? Just idiotic things. Because they weren't analyzing foreign policy, really. Foreign policy was merely the blunt instrument used to attack Trump for the amusement of the MSNBC and CNN audience. That's all that was. And so in that sense, they completely succeeded, which is why they get bigger followings and they'll get paid more money by these propaganda networks. Because the point isn't to be right. The point isn't to be insightful or to educate people. The point is to attack the political opponents of the left. And whether it's foreign policy or healthcare or immigration or police issues, that's the ultimate goal. Everything else is not even really a consideration. It doesn't matter. And the way that the libs were reacting to this peace deal yesterday, I think, tells you everything you need to know about, are they really rooting for peace in the Middle East? And with that, are they really rooting for American success in foreign policy? You know, there's this old phrase. It's so trite now. It's so quaint that partisanship stops at our nation's borders, or, you know, at the oceans that border us. And that's clearly not true, right? Foreign policy has been highly super partisan for a long time. But, you know, you do want good things to happen for America and for the world, regardless of political party. If you're a sane and moral person, the Democrats can't help but root against this, which is the beginning of what could be. I mean, if you get Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel, which the president said yesterday he believes is a real possibility, you will have an entirely new conception of the future of a whole region of the world. And it will go a long way to healing bitterness and hatreds that stretch back over a millennium now, going on 2 millenniums. So that's really meaningful. If you can just take the orange man bad aspect out of it for a second, libs, you could see that. But they can't. I mean, even Chuck Todd, again, Chuck Todd is just, he's an intense mediocrity. I don't know. I mean, Stephanopoulos, I don't get it. I don't get it with these guys. But, you know, they have people in the corporate suites of these corporate media entities that are owned by mega corporations, and, you know, they just sort of get the job. They're the guy that gets the job. And here's what Chuck Todd said about this peace deal. I just thought this is so funny. He's clever enough not to say, what do you mean? We want things in the Middle East to be terrible. But he can't bring himself to actually think this is a good idea. This is a good thing. Play 6.
You know, Peter, this deal is a bit uncomfortable for a lot of observers to watch because it seems so transactional. It's as if pulling out of the Iran deal is what got these Gulf states on board to do this, you know, to then recognize it. It feels like there is a lot of quid pro quos involved in this, that it isn't something larger than that. Then again, sometimes Middle East diplomacy, the only way to make things move is through the transactional nature of the region.
Notice how he ends up having to he says this out loud because he's looking for a way to get an answer or response that's like, this deal's not so great, right? Because it's transactional. And then he even goes into, I mean, I guess, yeah, kind of transactional is how diplomacy really works. Quid pro quo is how diplomacy works, right? This is the basis of all of it. You know, it's amazing this guy has a job doing political analysis on TV that pays him a lot of money. He says things like that. That's the best. I want to say, fortunately for him, he managed to kind of turn the ship around at the end a little bit. But you want to ask, have you ever been in the Middle East? Do you know how stuff gets done there? If you walk around and you tell Arab regimes, hey, you know what would be really nice? You know what would be a really nice thing? You know, make people feel good. It'd be like a big hug if you just stop hating Israel and actually have diplomatic relations with this country that is a close ally of the United States. No, you're not going to get very far if you do that. The transactional nature of diplomacy is something that one who is trying to do real analysis of this would expect is a part of the equation, but they just couldn't like it. I'm still waiting. It hasn't happened yet, but I am still waiting for Vox to write a piece, a preemptive piece, if you will, you know, quote, why a U.S. Trump brokered Saudi-Israel peace deal could be not such a good thing. They might go there. If they think that Trump might actually get some kind of official, and look, the Saudi recognition, that's kind of the holy grail of this. That would be the biggest peace deal in the Middle East ever. And bigger even than Sadat and, you know, Egypt and Israel if the Saudis came on board. I don't know if it'll happen. That's still, to me, it feels like a long shot. But then again, look what Trump's been able to pull off so far. But they would find a way. I'm telling you right now, they'd find a way to be like, well, really, he inherited Obama's foreign policy. You know, really, it was the Iran nuclear deal that created the groundwork that then they built upon. They'd come up with something. Otherwise, they can just admit that they were wrong. I don't know why. It's so hard for libs They won't do it. They won't admit that they're wrong. I just want to sit here and say, I mean, was Mitt Romney was a better choice than Obama at the time? Yes. But was I wrong to think that Mitt Romney would have been an excellent president? Yeah, I was wrong. Okay, I was wrong. You think about our Mideast military interventions, the war in Afghanistan, absolutely necessary, but we should have left soon after toppling and ousting the Taliban and just kept in place a minimal footprint to help our allies stave off a total collapse afterwards. Iraq, we were told there was WMD and there was an imminent threat. Was that the right move? No, I think Republicans made a mistake there. Right. And you can disagree with me on that. That's fine. But I'm just saying admitting when you're wrong is necessary if you're going to think of yourself as a person who has judgment, integrity, and should be listened to. Right. It's a critical step. But we now live in a media environment, in particular with the lib echo chambers. It's true on the right as well. You have people like this who will never admit a mistake. They think the pretense of being, the smartest, the best. They think the pretense of that is the most important aspect of their brand, that they're better and smarter than everybody else all the time and never wrong. They were wrong about Trump on the libs were wrong about Trump on foreign policy. And they just can't handle it. It's like they can't process it. It's like they can't figure out what to do with it. So it just does not compute. So what are they're going to ignore it, or they're going to downplay it, move on to something else. Talk about how Trump is worse than Hitler. They'll come up with some craziness to replace this in our minds, so that we just don't spend time thinking about it. Oh, here we go. We're going to get told any minute now, there's going to finally be justice for the deep state collusion against Trump. Lindsey Graham is going to get to the bottom of it. Senate Homeland Security Committee authorizes subpoenas for testimony from Obama officials as part of Russia probe. Brennan, Clapper, Comey. And look, we'll talk about this. We'll discuss this, but we already know what they're going to say once they testify. I mean, you got the Senate Homeland Security Committee here saying that they've authorized subpoenas for former CIA Director Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, and other Obama administration officials. The committee held a business meeting to authorize Committee Chairman Ron Johnson to issue notices for taking depositions, et cetera, et cetera. The committee voted 8-6 to authorize the subpoenas. All right, so they're doing some subpoenas. Also Dennis McDonough, former FBI counsel Lisa Page, FBI agent Joe Pientka, former ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power, director of intelligence Bill Priestman. Wow, they got a lot of people on this list. So I'm happy they're doing this, because at least it'll allow people to see these various senior Democrat deep state officials go before Congress and act like we're all a bunch of idiots and lie to our faces. And you can draw your conclusions from there about how much we can trust these institutions going forward, which have been riddled with far left and deep state ideologues. And I know this because I was in the CIA, and I remember there are lefties all over that place. The analytic core at the CIA is full of people who might as well be working for, a Soros funded left-wing think tank. Honestly. Yeah, I know. I was known as like a right-wing bomb thrower, even within the ranks of the CIA. People were like, where is this guy? He likes Reagan too much. What's going on here? The analysts are very left-wing in their political inclinations there. But here's where I always speak the truth to you. I've been telling you from the beginning, I don't think the Durham probe is going to amount to much, because they can always fall back. The bureaucrats know that their ultimate fallback position is, we did the best we could. We're just not very smart. We believe things that no intelligent person could believe that just happened to be really negative for Donald Trump. But Can't prove it was criminal. Can't prove it was criminal. And that'll be that. That'll be that. I mean, except for the one guy who was the only hope for the Durham probe to really get somebody was if they were so reckless and sloppy like that one lawyer at the FBI who changed evidence. But I mean, he's not going to, is he even going to jail for any period of time? He's not going to prison or anything. He's going to plead to something, and, that's it. And he'll get a book deal and probably go on the speaking circuit, talk about how he was protecting America from the Russian collusion. So I know, look, it would be probably better, right? We get more downloads and listens and clicks if I do what some of my fellow right-wing media folks do and just say, any moment now, just look at the clock. We're going to get him. We're going to get him. We're not. We're not. You want justice for what happened with the deep state coup against Trump? Give this president 4 more years. That's the only justice that we'll achieve. There's not gonna be Comey or Brennan marched out, frog marched out of an office or their homes in handcuffs. It's not going to happen. And if I'm wrong, just like I was saying before, I'll come on this and say, wow, team, I missed this one, but not going to happen. So I don't want people getting their hopes up about that. Let's focus on winning this election.